Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine. Welcome to the end of an era. If this is the first homeschool haul that you're seeing from me, then you're in luck because there are about 70 more homeschool hauls linked in the description box below, spanning over 10 years, so you can enjoy all of those. And if you've been following me for a while, then you know that our homeschool hauls have taken a bit of a shift in the last couple of years as we approach the end of our homeschool journey. We have not needed as many supplies anymore. We have everything that we need for homeschooling and then some. And so now our homeschool hauls are not quite as cohesive and don't fit our main lesson blocks quite as easily as our previous homeschool hauls. But nevertheless, I do want to share with you some of the things that we have for this almost final year of homeschooling. The first thing I want to share with you is called 10 Days in the National Parks. Now, we have this game, the 10 Days series, for the USA, for Africa, for Asia, and for Europe. And they also had South America, but we never got that one, and I regret it now because they are completely out of print. However, they are starting to print the 10 Days in the USA game again, but it's a little bit different. But when I saw this one, and I don't remember seeing this the first time around, I was really excited, and we picked this up in part as a gift for my older son, but also because it's like the games that we've always played and loved. And so I thought it would be a great addition to our homeschool for our opening activities, that is. Now, we have already played this game once, and it might just take a few more tries before we can really feel like we like it as much as the previous games. But it's a little bit different in that you are going across the US by going to national parks. And then the rules are kind of similar. Oh, and here's something else. The reprint of the games, and even I want to say even the original that we had when they were being reprinted, I heard from others that the wooden holder was made from plastic. And then this one, of course, because this is to the best of my knowledge, a new game, the holders are also made of plastic, which is disappointing because our original holders were made from wood. And if you would like to see the pictures of the original games that we had, as well as links to all of the materials that you're going to see today, I encourage you to check out the blog post that accompanies this video, and you can find that link in the description box below. You can see pictures of the materials that I'm sharing with you today, as well as things that are relevant for previous materials that we've used or previous main lesson blocks or unit studies. So the ones that we used to have, or that we still have, but they used to make, were wooden, and they were so nice. These are not nice. And because of the way the plastic is, you can see this, in my opinion, more easily getting broken or bent or damaged. And that's not very nice. The board itself is really good quality. The cards are not as good as the original cards. These cards have the same consistent or texture, I guess, and actually maybe the originals were about the same thickness. This feels like a plain card, but they were definitely bigger. So you get the cards that take you across the different national parks, and you get different transportation cards. And the point of the game, as it is with the other geography games, is to make your way across either the country or the continent or just the area of land that you're studying the geography for in 10 days using the cards that you draw and throw and the transportation cards. So the rules are fairly similar. For this one, if the national parks are together, then you can have those two cards together on your I don't know what you call these on your holder. And then if they aren't, then you'll need a transportation card to get to and from that national park. So this one is great because it can teach you it does teach you where the national parks are. But of course, the national parks aren't taking up this entire area. This is so that they are adjoining the other national parks. But of course, they cover state land. And so if you look at the cards, for instance, Big Bend will tell you where on the map to look for it, but also it'll tell you the state that it's in. It also tells you when it was established in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Again, it tells you where to look for it on the map. It tells you it's Arkansas. It doesn't show you the shape of the state though. You know that it is located in Arkansas, and you can see that it takes up more space than that. And again, it tells you when it was established. So these kinds of games, we love including games into our homeschool, and the way that we primarily play these games, and this would be a geography game for us, as well as, we might include it in a nature unit. But we usually play these games as part of our opening activities, and that way we can get through a lot of content. That doesn't feel like it's closing properly. But, well, you know what? Hold on. Oh, that's better. Okay. I hope that's better. Yeah, that's good. So we'll play these as part of our opening activities, and in that way we can end up including a lot of other materials that don't necessarily work with whatever main lesson block or unit study that we're doing for that day, but we get to explore either other units or review other things that we've done, or just play a game just to get us into that homeschool space. And so that's how we primarily use these games. And one thing is that we might not always get to all of our lessons as beautifully as we hope, but we almost always get to our opening activities, which can include, it's not really part of our opening activities, like we would also do our daily work, which is usually a review, or say it's proficiency building for language arts and math primarily. But our opening activities usually include some mental math, and then a game, maybe something that we're reading. And so it feels like we're getting a little bit of everything as we do our opening activities before we get into our main lesson. Okay, the other things, the two things, actually, they're kind of different. So let me just start with this one. And also I have a longer video that showcases this book called Insect Anatomy, as well as the Nature Anatomy posters. And that's also linked in the description box below in case you're interested in seeing a longer review of these two products. But these two products were sent to me for free by Julia Rothman, who is the author of not just Insect Anatomy, but also other books in the series that we have loved over the years and have used in our homeschool pretty extensively. And so while I don't have a unit coming up for either a nature unit, a botany unit, or a zoology unit, or anything on insects, we will use these materials as part of our opening activities. And maybe not the posters so much, but the book for sure, because for me, this is a way that we can utilize the books that we are no longer using for a unit study, but are still such beautiful resources. And there's a bit of nostalgia at this point in our homeschooling to sort of do some of the material that we did before, and nonfiction illustrated books or picture books or any of the nonfiction books that we have, especially when they are as gorgeously illustrated as these, lend themselves really well to doing a little bit of review work within your open activities, not categorized as review work, but rather just as we're going to read for 10 minutes out of one of these books, or for 5 minutes, or 3 pages, or whatever you decide. So this book, as the other ones, are very beautifully illustrated. I use these books primarily as illustration inspiration for our units. I love that they are easy to copy. It makes you feel really successful when you're including illustrations into your unit studies and main lesson blocks, especially for a zoology unit. It can be very challenging being accurate with your illustration. You don't need to always, you can always do something that's a little bit more artistic, but you don't want to make it wrong intentionally or otherwise. You do want to maintain a general, gesture of the animal that you are illustrating. And so having a book like this makes it so much easier for you to just get a general shape and feel successful with that and feel good about the work that you're doing. Now this one, what I like about this book, which is different from the previous books that I've seen in this series, there's Ocean Anatomy, there's Nature Anatomy, we also have Food Anatomy, which was a really interesting addition for our anatomy main lesson block. But what I like that they've done differently with this book is they've changed the font for the paragraphs. The font for the headers, I feel, is different as well. It's less scripty. And that, for me, I really appreciate, because when text is too scripty or looks like handwriting, or is even in cursive writing, but it's the main block the main paragraph, for me, it makes it more challenging to read. And as we mostly do these books as read aloud, I just prefer a more simplified font that's a little bit easier to read. So I really appreciate that change. Something else that I am wondering if it's different, but I can't confirm, is that I feel like there's more content in this book than there has been in the previous books in this series. I can't say for sure. That's just the feeling that I get. And I appreciate that more as well, because we usually use these books to support other books within a unit study or a main lesson block. So it's never our main resource. And I always felt like these books, as well as some of the other really beautifully illustrated books that we have, I'm thinking of the Welcome to the Museum series. For those books, I feel like I need to support it with other texts or the curriculum itself. And in this instance, with these new, what I think are new updates, or at least a more robust written work, or what would you call that? More robust writing, I feel like you could maybe use this for a mini unit and not really have to include too many other things. Of course, if you're doing a unit with younger children, I would definitely recommend some hands-on projects or some field trips or things like that to just kind of round out your unit. But as far as information, I feel like this is going to be a really good standalone resource, just because sometimes you don't need so many details for a general understanding of a unit. And when you're doing zoology units with really young children, I would recommend books that are more story driven anyway, so that you as a teacher may use some of this content for your own background knowledge on insects or anything that these books might provide, so that when you are doing your storytelling, you don't say things that are completely incorrect. Like insects would hibernate. Certainly they go through a chrysalis phase, but some of them do. But you wouldn't be, say, misspeaking regarding the insects. So I would suggest more story-driven books, or things that are like there are nature stories, for instance, that might serve the purpose really well. The other book so this was sent to me for free. I'm really excited about that, because in all of my years of sharing, there's been a few actually today I actually have like 2 different items that were sent for free, but usually that's not the case, because we're using our educational funding to purchase our homeschool material, but we don't have any education funding this year. So things that you're seeing me share, they were either sent for free or we just paid for it out of pocket. And really, we have so many resources as it is. There's very few things I technically really need for this year of homeschooling. This year we are doing a physics unit on mechanics. We're doing chemistry. We're continuing our chemistry. So we're doing combustion and acids and bases. We're doing partly world history and U.S. history, starting from so we're doing revolutions in politics and in science, and social revolutions. So we have the French Revolution, the American Revolution, and U.S. history from colonial times up until just shy of modern times. We are, for our language arts this year, actually, we're including some novels. And luckily, I have a lot of classics already, but there are a few that I'm considering including. And I'm not sharing with you the ones that we're including that I never shared before, because they've been in our library for ages. But there are a few that I'm considering maybe adding. The other things that I'm not showing you are anything that we're getting on Audible. And so we do have a subscription for Audible, and we are making use of that subscription by getting some classics. Some classics are actually already available if you have an Audible subscription. So if you do, check that out, because I was looking for The Tale of Two Cities, and that was already free if you are a member. So that was nice to have. So we are also including some of those. And then for math, we're doing algebra, which we already have a lot of algebra resources. Oh, I did buy one new algebra resource that I forgot to bring here. So let me grab that. This is the algebra book that I'll share with you shortly. And so we have so many resources already that we don't need to get any additional ones. And also, actually, for things like novels, we were just going to head to our local library and see, firstly, what's available in the library bookstore, because I prefer to own them since we don't know when we're going to get to them. We don't know whether they're going to take longer than our checkout time in order to finish them. So I prefer to own them. But we're just going to head to the library and look at the entire list. Like they're in one of the curriculum resources that we have. There's a list of, say, biographies to complement the history and science main lesson blocks. And so there are so many biographies, or maybe even autobiographies, that we can include. And then there are transitional novels for adolescents, and then there are classics. So I thought it would be a really fun outing to go to the library one afternoon and go through like the entire list, see what's at our local library, see what can be requested from other libraries, and then just see what inspires us in the moment. Oh, and the last thing that was actually a pretty big expense was that we signed up for Earth Schooling for grade 9, and that was something that I had never done before. I've heard really good things from that program. It's an online program. It's asynchronous classes, if I remember correctly. At least so far, all of them are. It isn't a group that you are following along with. So we did pay out of pocket for that, and I can't really speak yet on our experience, but so far I am pleased with it. But I'm looking at that as more of like a supplement, and even though it's totally not extracurricular activity, I'm almost thinking it in that capacity, so that I'm still maintaining the main lesson blocks that we want to do on a daily basis, but it does give my daughter something to do independently for about an hour to an hour and a half a day that allows me a little bit more time to do other things, either in preparation for our school or just household things, or for something like this, sharing this video with you. So that's been a nice asset that we have not almost ever used. This is our first online Waldorf-inspired class, or series of classes, because we did the entire 9th grade year. And I can't remember off the top of my head how much the classes are, but for an entire year, I want to say it's in between maybe 700 to 1,500 for the year. So, but you can find more information about that linked in the description box below. I've got the website linked below if you want to head over to the Earth Schooling website, and then you can check out everything they have to offer, because it's pretty extensive. So back to the material at hand. Right here, we have Nature Anatomy posters. Now, I did not know about this product, and when I was being sent Nature Anatomy, I did not know that this was going to come with it. This was a surprise for me, and I was so excited because I was truly, like, I knew this was coming, but I was truly excited to see this. So this is for Nature Anatomy, so this doesn't complement the insect anatomy, but it comes with posters, which I think is such a brilliant idea. So the majority of the posters are the size of the book, and I can tell you what size that is. So these are roughly 10 inches by 12 inches, so a nice size. And then you have 3 extra large posters. By the way, I love this print so much. I would do it in the other way so I could enjoy this print as well. And then there are these larger posters. So I won't be able to show you the entire thing, but 4 times as large, and they are perforated on one side. And they're folded, which is great because then it makes it easy to store after the fact. And that's always something that's a delight when manufacturers think about not just the product, but how you're going to store and use the product, or how you're going to use the product and store it. And so I really appreciate that, because that makes it a little bit easier, since the other posters that we have, either they're more delicate or they're laminated, and it makes it a little bit harder to store. So for these posters, there are some of these posters that I like more than others, like the anatomy of a butterfly. I love this. I would probably hang this one up. But then there are some that I don't care for as much, like the snowflakes poster. I think I might prefer something a little bit more detailed, or maybe, I don't know, something different. Like this one doesn't appeal to me as much as some of the other ones. So this poster book comes with 28 pull-out posters, and I believe that would be these ones, and then, or maybe that includes all of them, as well as the larger ones. For something like this, we would use this in our homeschool room as homeschool room decoration, rather than really pulling this out and like reading it like the way that I would a book. This would be more like classroom decoration. And you know what I think would be really cool, especially also if you had a home laminator, because these are already like small enough to do this. I would consider laminating them. I wonder if they would fit through a home laminator. I think they might actually. Then, so have that and a little, like, not quite an easel, but like, or maybe like a tiny one, like a wooden one. So put this up on the little easel and then maybe have some specimens maybe, or life cycle of the animal, or maybe I don't know, like a picture book or a storybook, and just make it like a little mini unit. And like every morning, like the children come in, they see all the little things laid out for them. I love that kind of aesthetic with like the homeschool space. It makes it very inviting. So the Big Fat High School book for Algebra 1, I'm not a huge fan of the series, the Big Fat Book series. We have it for math and we have it for chemistry, and I'm not super crazy at the moment of the way that it's laid out. Okay, so one thing that I don't like about it, which is completely personal, it's nothing about the content, I do not like the way that it's printed. For me, I cannot stand the grid. So for me, for just the way my eyes work and the way my brain processes, this is way too chaotic for me. I need like plain background. And I know this is like a really beautiful font, but honestly, I just need like New Times Roman, or what is the other basic one that's like in everything? I need like a basic font. This is so pretty, but for me and my eyes, I just don't like it. I don't like the way the grid is either. However, you can work in this book, which is really great. The texture of the paper is really great. I won't make that noise in case it bothers your ears, but the weight of the paper is really good. It's not too thin, it's not too thick. It has a nice amount of friction. These are inconsequential for most people. I completely understand it, but it will make it easy to write with pencil in this book. It will make it just enjoyable. So this book is going to come with a lot of examples. It's pretty extensive. And guess what? I'm not the one going over it with my daughter, because my son is. My son is actually majoring. One of his majors is applied mathematics. And so he's taking on the algebra study for my daughter, which is completely fine. Honestly, in 9th grade, truly, this is the year where if you've been successful as a homeschool parent, this is the year that may really challenge you. And it has been the case. I don't know if now I'm just setting myself up this way, but it has been the case with all 3 of my sons so far. This is my homeschooling my daughter, my final homeschooler at the moment. And always I found that between mid 8th grade through mid 10th grade, so that 2-year span of adolescence, is incredibly challenging for whatever relationship you've already built as a homeschooler, as a parent. It's as if it gets deconstructed entirely and then reconstructed. So and I didn't even get a chance to teach her algebra before, I don't know how it materialized, but my son took over. I think he offered, and I think she's like, yeah, this might be interesting. So he offered, and he's like, well, what resources are you using? And so I showed him the resources. And then I can't even remember how my daughter decided that she wanted this one, but she's the one that found it. And we just bought it from Amazon, and I believe it was $10. So it's fine. I hope that it works. And if it doesn't, it's not like the cost of a textbook or a curriculum. So I feel like it's so appropriate to try out a book like this. And so far, she is enjoying it, and she has her pages written in the front with her work, so I will keep those private. But she is working through the book with my son, and they spend probably 3 hours a week, maybe on average. So sometimes they'll do a 10-minute lesson, and then other times they'll do an hour lesson. So that's how it's been so far. Okay. Let's move on to a couple of books that are actually from secondhand or from the library bookstore. So I realized in our home library, we didn't have Romeo and Juliet. And I cannot remember if we ever had it or not, but we never focused on the Renaissance, and we never did a Shakespeare unit ever in our homeschooling before. But I decided to offer it to my daughter this year, and I'm not actually sure that we're going to get to this book this year, this play this year, but I will have it available for her in case she's interested. So a lot of the books, a lot of the content for, okay, so this is primarily a US phenomenon. I could be very wrong on this, but a lot of our stories, a lot of our movies, a lot of our cinema or media has, quote unquote, happy endings. And the idea of having, like, say, a tragic ending or any other kind is not something you're going to find a lot of in, I don't want to say classic books or it's maybe more youthful books, okay, and cinema. So introducing or having more tragedy or anything else, I think is going to be really interesting. Now, we have read sort of maybe some books that are like this in the past, but definitely not before high school. I'm not sure if this is a sound pedagogical position, but I personally would not want to do tragedies before puberty unless it's just historical and it happens to be part of our lesson, but I would not choose at the moment. I'll have to think more critically about that, whether that has been the case throughout all of our homeschooling. But anyway, Romeo and Juliet, and maybe a little bit more about this time period, or we can include it as well in the beginning of our history unit, which actually we took a step back from our history unit and went a little bit further back in time to Age of Discovery. So a few of those lessons. Parseval. Okay, this is interesting because I bought this for 9th grade, but actually Parseval is, I believe, an 11th grade text in Waldorf schools. And so I just was either excited to do this or was thinking that we could include it in 9th grade, or I wanted to bring it in 9th grade because we were probably not going to be homeschooling in 11th grade, because usually we exit high school in 10th grade or beginning of 10th grade, sometime end of 9th grade into 10th grade, and go directly to community college. And so we had just done Parseval in our Waldorf teacher training, and so since it was fresh on my mind, I thought I would include it. Now, there are different versions, and I am just not that well versed in this text, and of course it's part of like a greater story. So, and this one is by Lindsay Clark. So if we can include it this year, we will. This one was, I think, purchased from a thrift bookstore online. Women in Art, this book we picked up from our local library bookstore. There are others in this series. We have the Women in Science one. So when I saw the Women in Art, I thought, let's just add it to our collection. We don't have any purpose for this at the moment, but again, a lot of these books we could use in our opening activities, and it would just basically be reading one woman for a period of, like, we might do this for like a week straight, and we might just choose, we wouldn't go in order, we might just choose 5 women to study that week and read through, and then if it inspires any more learning, then that's great, and we can maybe pick up a biography on it. But otherwise, this is just a nice thing to include, and I really do love including female role models, women in art, women in science, women in politics, women in any facet of life, because I sometimes or often feel like they are overlooked, and they are incredible resources. Drawing data with kids, I do have a separate video on this that's a little bit more extensive. It is linked in the description box below if you'd like to see that. This is what's curious. This book was written, I'm probably going to pronounce the name wrong, Gulrez Khan, and then this book was written by Farhat Jan Syed, and this is a husband and wife team. So the wife wrote this book, Fatima al-Samarkandi, and then the husband wrote this book, I think after, if I'm not mistaken. But check out the back. So drawing data with kids. So you have, this is kind of cool, screen time learning, storytelling, and data visualization. And this book is right in the middle. It covers like all three of those spheres. And we know as parents, we try to reduce the screen time. It's impossible to eliminate it entirely. I totally recognize that, and we shouldn't, we shouldn't trouble ourselves when we can't eliminate it entirely. And then storytelling is just a great tool for teaching anyone, but especially children. And this concept of data visualization, which is, I'm going to say it can be a little bit tough to completely understand. And this book's going to help you get there. And it is written in a way I think is really ingenious, but actually, you're probably going to see other books like this as well. But there is a space for you to write in the book, to work out the problems that you learn in that chapter. So a nice way to include the learning within the book. So you have the storytelling part of the book, you get presented a problem, you get presented how to work through that problem, and then you can actually work in the book directly or on a piece of paper on the side. So this book really should be considered more like a picture book and a curriculum all in one. Speaking of female role models, Fatima of Samarkandi is one such woman. She is a scholar from the 12th century. And this book, as I've said before, it's like having 3 books in one. It is so extensive. It's just a very detailed book. And as I went through the book, and it's quite a lengthy book. I'm a bit of a slow reader. I think it took about a half an hour to read, maybe even longer. I got to a point where I'm like, oh, wow, that's the end. Like, that's a good ending. Like, she did this, or she accomplished this, or this makes sense. And then it kept going. I'm like, wow, at this point the book should end. And it kept going and it kept going. And so it's quite lengthy, includes a lot of content. It seriously could be a series. It is that robust. And so I'm really impressed with this book. So if you are interested in adding these kinds of book, either for a history unit or for a book on inspiring women of the past, this book would suit that really well. And just in case you're wondering about the illustrations, there are some Muslims, this is written by a Muslim, there are some Muslims who prefer not to illustrate people and animals, and in order to do that in a respectful way, they just don't put faces on it. So that is why the illustrations are that way. Okay, let's move on. These books have a bit of a theme. Actually, let me do this one in a moment, and let's start with Nature's Paint Box. This is by Mona Lewis. Mona Lewis is a handwork teacher with decades and decades of experience. This is one of her books. And what I love... Okay, so I love handwork as it is, but what I love also about this book, separate from the handwork material or projects or other things that we have been inspired by in the past, this also includes dyeing of fabrics and using natural materials from the environment for dyeing, for eco-printing, for paint. And all of those things really excite me because it's very close to like using your environment in a creative way, but also in a purposeful way. I just love it so much. This book is divided up by the seasons, and within the seasons, you will see, actually, let me see if I can actually show you. Let's start with... Let me find a season where I can show you all the different aspects of it, because it also includes storytelling. Here we go. So you can see it starts with, well, I don't know if it actually starts with autumn. I think, yep, okay. Starts with autumn, which makes sense, beginning of the school year. And you have these beautiful lanterns, because the lantern walk is something that we do in, I believe, November, if I'm not mistaken. And then, especially after the time changes and it gets dark earlier. And it starts with this, you have this really beautiful story that begins this chapter, or this section rather, on autumn. And because this is Waldorf inspired, you get a pedagogical story, and it's based on Waldorf education. Then as you move through the book, you're going to get different projects. And also, what I've come to realize and learn is that there are practices that teachers and adults will do. So if you just imagine what life might have been like or what life is like, there are certain things that need to be done as part of our work on a daily basis. Now, granted, we are not, say, tilling the land and growing our own food and growing the botanicals for our medicine and for fabric dyeing, or shearing the sheep and carding the wool in order to make our clothing. But these were practices that were done regularly up until, kind of recently when you think about human existence. So now you can think, well, what are the tasks that I'm doing today? Well, a lot of the things are still the same. We still need to clothe ourselves. We still need to feed ourselves. We still need to mind our homes and our vehicles. So we have cars now versus, say, animals for transportation. All these things that we need to mind. So in the past, I don't want to say that we're not close to the earth now, because that would feel sad saying that. But there are so many things that we were so creative in using the things in our environment for our necessity, but also to beautify those things. So we didn't just all have the same color clothing. We learned to make our clothing different colors. And if we couldn't make them different colors, then we learned how to embellish them with embroidery or design. And so that for me brings me a lot of joy. So this book is going to talk about some things that, like, say, for instance, weaving is a practice that adults would do. We need to weave in order to make our clothing. But how do you bring that to children? When do you bring that to children? And in what capacity do you bring it? So here it shows you a very simple, actually, I have a tutorial on how to make these. I learned how to make this many years ago in one of my Waldorf trainings. So this tutorial is linked in the description box below in case you're interested. But the way that this is such a nice addition. I've never done it this way before with the wood. That's so gorgeous. I would like to try that. So you're bringing weaving to children in like your grade 3 maybe, or you can in grade 3, and you might bring it later or earlier for other purposes. But these skills are revisited again post-puberty. So in high school, you're revisiting a lot of these skills, but now you're taking it up a notch and you're perfecting it, or you're taking it to the next level. So this book is going to go through a lot of things that you can do as an adult, and it's going to show you how to do them with younger students. Oh, that's so pretty. I have not made one as a rainbow before. That looks very inspiring. Oh, look at that. I have not done like that before. And that's really using the materials in your environment. So there are a couple of projects that I've done from this book previously, and there are some projects that we did from this book more recently because Mona Lewis, so that would be the author of this book, also participates. She's one of the teachers for the Waldorf Practical Arts Training. And if you're interested in that, there's also information in the description box below about that. And we actually did this project using oak gall to make ink, and then we used it for writing and for some illustrations. So highly recommend this book. It is full of information. It's so beautifully done. It's divided up into the seasons, has beautiful stories. A lot of them I think are actually local indigenous for Southern California, so even more of a treasure if you're living in this area. All right, let's move on to some more books by Mona Lewis. 4 more books by Mona Lewis. Well, actually, I should say they're illustrated by Mona Lewis. They are written by Alan Salazar, who is a member of one of the native tribes in the LA area, and I can't remember which one, so I'm not going to say in case I'm saying it wrong. So, and I'm also mispronouncing this. I was told how to pronounce this, and I already know that I'm going to say it wrong again. So Tataviam creation story. I think there's a pronunciation guide in here that can help us out. So here's some words. Tatavia. Well, I apologize for mispronouncing the name of the tribe. So this is a creation story, and the way that we use these books, number one, we would use them within our main lesson block, especially in the younger grades. So between grade 1 and 5 is a time that we would use these kinds of books. Now, and I didn't actually intend to buy these books. I just intended to share them with you and then return them to Mona. during one of our Waldorf Practical Arts trainings, but then I got them home and I looked at them like, these are just such beautiful treasures. And so we decided to include them. And I'm really glad we did, because actually, while we normally talk about, like, say, the creation stories and the culture and just understanding people and their religion, etc., between grades 1 and 5, for our grade 8, grade 9 history, we are doing colonial times as well as Western movement, and a lot of those lessons include Indigenous tribes and their stories and their culture. So I'm really glad to include this, even though oftentimes, especially with, like, say, colonial times and revolution and Civil War, like, those things are happening on the East Coast primarily, and we're out in California, and so, got left out of a lot of that pivotal history in U.S. history, but we're still going to include these books because these are the Indigenous people that were local to us, a little bit north of us, but local in Southern California. There's also Chumash Stories, a collection of traditional Chumash legends and history. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, because these books are, I think, all designed this way, where you have the story at the beginning, really beautifully done. And I know this is not totally important, but the paper is so nice. The paper and the illustrations, the way it has like that soft kind of illustration, the way the paper is kind of has like that sort of textured roughness to it. I love all of those details. It's just such a beautiful treasure. And I did opt to get them in hardback. They also have them in paperback, but the hardback is just so beautiful. So it has the story at the beginning, and then about 2/3 of the way through, you get a little bit of history. You get a history lesson. I think maybe that's a little bit later on, or maybe you already passed it. And here we go. You get a history lesson included in the book. So that's only about halfway through. So you get the story, you get the history, and then you get some hands-on projects as well, hands-on project ideas as well towards the back of the book. So such a robust offering for a book. So you get a picture book, you get a history book, and you get a craft book all in one. Then there's the Tataviam Tauhi, a tribal story, and similar format for this one. I think this one's actually a little bit smaller, and then a little bit more about this particular tribe and where they are located. So this one is more north of LA, or LA County, so a little bit more north. And then it also includes some projects at the back. So beautiful. And what's really great also is that you can recreate these projects. You can go on hikes in the local foothills and the local mountains and find the materials in order to recreate these things. And if you're interested, I highly recommend that you follow Mona Lewis on her various social media platforms, because she does host on occasion either classes or hikes where you can learn how to do these skills locally. So really, really beautiful. Oh, I didn't see this before. So that you can draw this in color on your own as well. Coyote Rescues Hawk, a Chumash story. Again, beautifully illustrated. Same format, beautiful paper. And then you have the history and the hands-on projects at the back. So you can find these books, the links to these books and Mona's social media, all in the description box below. Okay. After going to the Waldorf Practical Arts training, I decided to pick up a book on making natural dyes for 2 reasons. And I got this, that is just so gorgeous. So beautiful. This is so beautiful. So the 2 reasons why I got this book. The first reason, so like when I bought this, I immediately started a really big project that consumed my time until now. So for 4.5 months, I've been very consumed with other projects. And before that, we had the Waldorf Practical Arts training. Before that, we were finishing up our school year. So I haven't had a chance to go through this book in detail, and it's just so beautifully laid out. So the reason why I am getting this book, number one, I really want to include this as part of our handwork, is to include more fabric dyeing. There's a lot that you can do with with just fabric that you're buying from the fabric store. But what I think is so exciting is to learn how to dye this fabric on your own. Now, we've used RIT dye for years, and that is not a natural dye. We've used it for natural materials, we've used it for polyester, and it works really well, but it's not natural. And you can have a lot of fun with it, and you can get very creative, but I would love to include more natural dyes. Now, we've done this in the past, we've definitely enjoyed it, but I am looking to increase my skills in it. Now, the other reason why I got this book is because I want to also grow these plants in my garden so that we can have our own dye garden. And this is not completely uncommon, like this is a thing. And I know some other people locally who are interested in doing this or who have already started to do this. And so I definitely wanted to, as we grow our plants and do our landscaping, I wanted to look at including some plants that we can grow that are definitely things that would thrive here locally in Southern California and can add to this project of mine of learning how to do more plant dyed material. Okay, so that's a good transition into fabrics. These are not plant dyed fabrics. These are printed fabrics, and they are quilting fabric. So I just learned a lot going to a quilting store to find fabric, because for the longest time we could all get our fabric from local big box stores, and we know that some of them are no longer here. And quilting fabric, or at least calico fabric or cotton fabric at, like, say, a local fabric store, was maybe not the best quality, but the price certainly reflected that it wasn't the best quality, and so you could get quite a lot for not very much. Now that those stores are no longer in business, and because I wanted to include both hand sewing and machine sewing because of my daughter being in half 8th grade, half 9th grade, this is the time to introduce the sewing machine, as it's part of the handwork curriculum, but it also complements the rest of the curriculum. So we had some projects that we wanted to do. We haven't done them yet. We had some projects that we wanted to do. So together we went to a fabric store and we picked out some fabric. And so and you can see there's a theme going on here, a lot of fall inspired fabrics. And so we have things that would coordinate really well if we wanted to do something that was more of a quilt, but still like a sewing project, but more of a quilt design. And so we got a lot of these actually, I think these are mostly mine. I think hers are actually in her room, and she chose a different color palette. So I just remembered that right now, because she did like this one that has some mushrooms in it, but actually hers are all in the blue, white, more beachy family. So these are for some projects that we have. So let me and this is a fat quarter. I learned what a fat quarter was, and I also learned how to fold one as well. So you fold it like you would a flag. And fat quarters are $4, and they are 1/4 of a yard, but instead of being 1/4 of a yard and it being long, they give you a 1/2 yard, but then cut it in half. And that way, I suppose it makes it better for your projects. But as a brand new quilter, I cannot really say much more than that. So we got a lot of these really beautiful fabrics. I've already used this one for a couple of projects, but then I had to take a break from everything because I had a little bit of a hand surgery, and it's still, my thumb is not 100% back to normal, and so I wasn't able to do a lot of the detailed work that I needed that I could do before. So still waiting for full recovery. So this is what the fabric is for. Really beautiful, very inspiring. I have it in this beautiful handmade bowl that I picked up from Goodwill, and it was still like, I think $15, but it's broken, and I bought it broken, but it was handmade and really gorgeous, and it holds our fabric, and I think it just looks really beautiful. But then I also bought this fabric, which is fine. I think the quality is not what I was expecting, and it was from Etsy, and so it was very expensive. Since this is a haul video, I'll just tell you, after shipping and everything, these 2 yards cost nearly $50, so, or actually more, maybe $54. So not great, but I needed fabric that had figs on it for I made some homemade fig jam using figs from my mom's garden. So fig season here in Southern California, for the ones that have the green skin on the outside, is September. So she gave me a lot of figs that I turned into fig jam, and this is to wrap the jars in. But now actually I think I'm going to take this beautiful fabric and make some wax wraps with them, and still wrap the jar but make it as a wax wrap, so you get 2 gifts in one. So these projects are going to be for part of this year for the fabric, but I have one more thing to share with you. I was going to say something else about the fabric, but it just slipped my mind. So let me share with you the last thing that I have here. This was also sent to me for free from a friend and a fellow homeschooler who is here online and different social media platforms. And you can also find her on the website for Ticket to Learning. She makes unit study kits, and I think it's brilliant. I love it so much. Now, I've already done an extensive unboxing. That video is also linked in the description box below if you want to see the complete unboxing. I'm going to make this very brief to share with you these subscription, or actually, I take that back. I'm not actually sure if it's a subscription box or you just buy them a la carte one at a time. It comes with everything you need. For the physical box, they also have a digital version as well. So if you don't want, the physical box is much more than the digital version. So if you would rather have the digital products, those are all available. But if you're like me and need physical products because you're not going to get around to printing them, and also this has way more than what you could print off on a computer, then I suggest getting the physical box. It came packed with so many things. These boxes are going to include things for science, history, and language arts, not for math. Of course, you can always add that in depending on your math lessons. And I just want to say that all of the quality was so superb. I was so impressed with everything. It comes with an explanation for what this particular box is. This is Light Comes to Shadow Mountain. And at the time, okay, so that's really cute, like a ticket. At the time, I did not recognize how clever this sticker is. So there are many ways to pronounce Appalachian mountains, and I barely even said 2 of them. Appalachia. This sticker is going to tell you how to pronounce it. There's the way the locals pronounce it, and then there's the way everyone else pronounces it. And I probably said both of them incorrectly. So this particular unit study, and I love this, like, we just talked about the Appalachian Mountains as part of our geology unit. So this is really exciting. This one came with a unit or a portion on physics or electricity. It also came with handwork. It came with an embroidery kit, which is amazing. Let me just show this to you really quickly. You can see the complete unboxing, but it came with the embroidery hoop, some felt, and the like little handkerchiefs or napkins, and then all of the embroidery materials that you need. So the needles, and then the embroidery thread. And then, we have a lot of these materials as it is, so we can work with what we were sent, or we can also work with the things that we have as well. And then tried not to, like, the packaging was so cute. I tried not to wreck it, but I ended up wrecking it a little bit. Oh, now I won't be able to get this out. That's because I repackaged it incorrectly. Well, if I can't get this out, let me tell you what's in here. Oh, there we go. It looks like some copper tape, some batteries, and then paper clips and some lights and some brads. And there are instructions on how to use everything. Well, there. Now I've just packaged it wrong again, and I'm gonna have to go through all that again. We have some soil, we have some mini pots. Gosh, that name just escaped me. The ones that they're just biodegradable. There's some calendula in here. Nice, cute little mason jar as well. This was the coolest thing. These are pens that are fountain pens, but the ink is already here. You don't have little cartridges, and they worked really well. This is silly, but I might be the most excited about these pens. Some paper, some little press passes, And then it came with 2 books, which is just amazing. And I didn't know about this book, Light Comes to Shadow Mountain. And I did like a really quick search on this book. And it's when the phone line came to the mountains, and just that sort of that time period. I don't remember the time period. I want to say like Industrial Revolution time. Maybe probably post-industrial revolution, because if it's coming to the mountains, it probably came much later. Let's see if it tells you when. No, I'm so sorry. I should have researched a little bit more before telling you. And then the folk tales from the Southern Appalachian Mountains, Appalachians, and there are already some pages flagged for the different stories to tell. And I love stories like this. You can learn so much about a people through their folk tales and fairy tales and other legends and things like that. Then, and I want to say, like, all of the quality of the material, everything here was just beautiful and just so nice. So this one comes with the things that go along with the gardening. So you have the gardening here, but then you have the content as well, and the project. So it's an herbal salve kit. Herbal salve kit. So it comes with the calendula flowers, but then you also have the olive oil that you have on your own. Included in the kit was the beeswax pellets and the vitamin E capsules, and then of course your jar and the cheesecloth. Oh, that must be this one. That is so clever. Wait, maybe that's not. I just made that up. But it seems like you could use this as cheesecloth. I think this is. And then jar labels, which are so adorable. So pretty. Okay. So that's, and a gardening journal. Oh, it's just so nice. It's just, I love kits so much. I love it when everything is included, and it just makes it so much easier to do. And then this is the rest of the embroidery kit information, as well as some patterns, and that's included here. Embroidery kit directions, and then, there's one more after this. Then there is the the electricity information and the rest of the things that go along with that kit and those lessons. And then, which is perfect. Just dawned on me, of course, because it coordinates. So you're doing like did I say telephone lines? I said telephone lines. Not telephone lines, electricity. I'm sorry. That's why it coordinates. I'm so silly. So when electricity came to the mountains, anywho, sorry for that blunder. And then the last thing, I love when cooking is included in a unit, and these are recipe cards. And you have like this beautiful kind of watercolored illustration on one side, and you have a QR code. It's going to take you probably to the recipe, could take you to a video. I'm not sure. I actually haven't used that yet. And then the directions on the other side. I did notice that there was a lot of either bacon, lard, or it's just from animal, like we don't eat pigs. We're a Muslim family, so we don't like pigs, lard, bacon, all of those things we don't. It's very easy to trade out, but I did notice that there was a lot for these recipes in particular, and that might be because of its location and its easy use. I'm just guessing, I don't know. And so I just wanted to say that in case you saw that here, wanted just to explain that if we're doing these recipes, we just make some modifications, no big deal. And if you're vegetarian, for instance, you might make modifications as well. So just want to put that out there. Okay, and I think that's everything with some notebooks as well. So anyway, really, really beautiful kit. Really enjoyed it. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed this look at our homeschool haul. Don't forget to check out the blog post that accompanies this video, where you can find more information, links, as well as pictures of the things that you saw here today. You can find that link in the description box below. And if you'd like to see how we're homeschooling on a daily basis, you can find me on my website at pepperandpine.com.